Prof, thank you so much for joining us this evening. You are a person who has monitored violence in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands for decades. You've monitored what happened during apartheid. You've also watched the political killings that have gone on at municipal level in recent years. What are you seeing right now around unhappiness, around food, and parcels not getting to the right people? How worried are you about this?
Well, I've been very worried. I mean, it's manifesting, say, in a township in Durban. I won't name the township because there's quite a lot of work going into trying to stop the violence erupting, but where a councillor has allegedly been doing this, giving out parcels to some people and not others. And it's kind of a community worker there who's also got some experience in legal work, was extremely worried that people are getting so angry there may be open confrontation, violence. We've both worked to try and get the police watching out for it. But there is a lot of anger, but it's driven by hunger. There's hunger everywhere. And I mean, I've had reports of this story with councillors giving out food parcels or even keeping them for future needs, like when they want to get elected to an executive body, for example, from different areas in the Midlands and Durban. But there's another side of the coin which also worries me deeply, and that is in some rural areas there's no food getting through and people are extremely angry. And in one area where I've been working with a councillor who's actually a very hands-on councillor in the community is going for this councillor and saying, but, you know, what have you done with the food? And the councillor hasn't actually had any food. But the whole system is wrong because it's not councillors who should be distributing it. I mean, the government should be working through either faith-based organisations with a proven track record who are doing their own thing or registered NPOs. They shouldn't be giving it to political functionaries to start with, and that's a recipe for disaster because ever since I can remember, whichever the party is, they give out food parcels selectively because that's the way they try to buy votes, or at the moment they're trying to boost their popularity because it's local government elections next year and they want to be councillors again.
Now, Mary, have you been able to assess what's the bigger problem? The desperation, as you say, especially in deep rural areas, of people who are desperately hungry, and even people in urban areas who are just not getting the food. Is that more worrying to you, or more of an issue, or likely to explode first, compared to the concern about corruption around the food parcels? Which is the bigger concern for you at this point?
Well, I think they're interlinked. You can't separate them out. I mean, the biggest concern is obviously to get food to people. People are very hungry. And I mean, don't forget, a lot of these people are on medication for HIV and TB. And if you don't get, you know, I've come across cases without this particular situation where people just stop taking medication. And then, of course, that makes the disease worse. So there's all sorts of hidden costs to this. And the bottom line is, I think this was very badly conceived because this whole lockdown without making sure there were adequate ways of getting food to people, because a lot of people depend on informal sector. They depend on piecemeal jobs, people who are being paid in low-paid jobs. They're a domestic worker. If their employer is not getting paid, how's the employer going to pay the domestic worker? So, gardener, you know, so the extent of the problem, I mean, we have a 1/3 of our population unemployed to start with, and that unemployed population makes the most of the informal sector. And of course, a lot of it's liquor too. You know, running a shebeen. And I mean, that's the way people have kept body and soul together in South Africa since colonial times. So it's tough.
Mary, what do you expect this evening, and what would you like to see? You know, you mentioned the concern about politicians at local level giving out food parcels, but it is one way to get food to the needy. But as you say, it's very easy for corruption to creep in. We do know as well, of course, about massive relief efforts, many NGOs, many organisations that are giving food parcels. Is it meeting most of the need, some of the need, or hardly hardly any of the need in your view?
I think it's meeting some of the need, but it worries me because we actually don't know how bad things are in many of the rural areas. I mean, in some areas people do have food gardens, but not nearly enough have food gardens. Yes, I mean, if councillors give out food, if they're working in communities, but you must also remember that a lot of councillors never go near their constituencies until there's an election. As I said, there are others that try to do their best. Now, if you're going to use councillors to give out food, then you should keep an audit of it. How many parcels of food have we given this person? Right. Get people to sign for it. Where are the lists? There are ways of dealing with this. And look, I mean, to me, this is an old habit, as I said, using food as a form of patronage. But to do it in the midst of near starvation for many people, that's depravity. These people must never be allowed to be councillors again. They must never be allowed to be elected. There must be an inquiry. And the parties, because, it's not just one party. It depends who's in power in a particular area. And it's something that's been done by all parties in the past. So, that must be dealt with. But the immediate thing, and what you asked me what I'm hoping for, well, I certainly hope there'll be some easing of these lockdown restrictions, because as I said, I don't think there was enough planning for people who are dependent on moving around. Take the picture. There was a picture in the paper yesterday here. A 78-year-old woman who'd walked into town from quite far away to look for food for her grandchildren. She's 78. She was looking in dustbins. She was looking for discarded food because she makes items of clothing and it's not an essential service. So, it was very badly conceived. I think the government is largely out of touch with its constituents. People say to me, well, they only come near us when there's an election. And I've had activists within parties saying to me, they come here to show off their wealth and their cars and they leave nothing behind. And I think they don't know how bad things are for people. They should have.
Prof. Mary, you certainly are painting a very worrying picture there, and I'm very pleased that you're bringing it to light. Thank you so much for your time. That's Professor Mary de Haas. She's a violence monitor of many years, and she's the Honorary Research Associate at the University of KZN.